Okay, call to order. This. Let's see. There we go. So we call to order this October 14th, 2021 meeting of the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee. It is 2:30 p.m. Craig, will you do the roll call?
Sure. Mr. Van Hove?
Here.
Mr. Stitchick?
Present.
Ms. Kilcoyne?
Present.
Mr. Lindemood?
Present.
Ms. Acton?
Present.
Ms. McNulty?
Present.
Mr. Boland?
Present.
Mr. Rebuffo? Mr. Colhays?
Present.
Ms. Heil?
Here.
And Mr. Coy?
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
And did you recognize that Ms. Kilcoyne came in?
I did.
Okay, perfect.
I thought Mr. Rebuffo was on the phone, but maybe he was muted. Maybe he was yelling at us, but he was muted.
Okay, good job. Okay, we definitely have a quorum. And Craig, will you please do the public involvement now?
All AMATS committee meetings are open to the public. We have a business item. We'll have a presentation by staff or a consultant. Then after that, the committee will be given a chance to discuss it. And then we will open it to the public for comment. And then it will come back to you after that for your decision.
Perfect, thank you. Also, I guess maybe I'll say real quick, I'm Brad Coy, the municipal traffic engineer, and this is my first time chairing the committee. So I'll be open for any feedback afterwards. Let's move on to the first item, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for approving the agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Van Hove, second by Mr. Bullitt. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Okay, are there any objections to approving the agenda? Looks like we don't, so agenda is approved. Let's move on to number 4, approving the meeting minutes. Do we have a motion for approving the August 12th, 2021 minutes?
This is Matt Stitchick. I move to approve the August 12th minutes.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Stitchick, seconded by Mr. Van Hove. Do we have any changes requested for the minutes? Okay, and this is pretty simple. Looks like, do we have any objections then for approving the minutes? Okay, the August 12th, 2021 minutes are approved. Let's move on to the action items. First one, MTP 2050. Craig, are you going to be presenting on that one?
We're going to have Aaron Yanganalen, our senior planner, who is managing that project, is here to present.
Okay, sounds good. Take it away, Aaron.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Aaron O'Neill. I'm the project manager, as Craig said, of the 2050 MTP update. It's good to see most of you since it's been forever. And those that are on virtually, thanks for attending. So I'm very excited to announce that we have a couple of items before you for approval or recommendation for approval from the MTP. So we did start the MTP about a month ago, and we're moving forward pretty steadily. Our goal, our overall goal for this MTP is to make things a little more streamlined, kind of in the beginning, get a little bit faster going through stuff to allow more time at the very end to see the document as a whole and give more time for the public to comment and for changes to be made based on those comments where appropriate. So I say that as something to just keep in mind as we move forward on this plan, because it'll probably come up multiple times, that I'll always constantly remind everyone of what our process is, and you'll kind of see it as part of our PIP, our public involvement plan, that we'll talk about here in just a second. So right now we have the public involvement plan, and then we have the vision statement and guiding principles. This is kind of the first cornerstone piece of the MTP development. This kind of guides the majority of what we're going to be doing for the MTP, gives us our overall scope that we kind of look at as we're moving forward and things to think about. We will have stuff on the screen here, or you can follow through on your iPads. If you guys want to move and turn around on the screen, please feel free to. I won't be offended if you do. It's okay. I know it's kind of confusing. So the first item is the public involvement plan. Okay, so this is telling us kind of how we're going to be involving the public and a lot of the various pieces that are involved in public involvement throughout the MTP update. My plan for this is just do a quick run through and then see if there are any questions about it. If there are specific details that you guys want to go through, just let me know, but it's been out for a little while and it really takes a nice read through to understand kind of what we're talking about, but I did want to highlight some key pieces as we're going forward. So this talks about who the committee, who the consulting party is, who the project team is. It kind of outlines that information so everyone can follow through and contact them if need be. It does talk about public participation process that AMATS does follow as part of its public participation plan. And then we talk about what our overall public involvement plan is for the MTP. So it goes through meetings, how meetings are formatted, how meetings are set up, the fact that we're going to be doing mostly virtual meetings. Hybrid meetings are available upon request, or as the project team and myself work through this, if we determine that it's safe enough for us as a group to do hybrid meetings, we can go ahead and do that. We want to make sure that there's plenty of opportunity for people to be involved either in person or virtually. But we do want to make sure that everyone is being safe while we're going through these meetings. So then we talk about kind of our different tools that we're going to be using for engagement. So our online surveys, our website, Miro, which if anyone hasn't used it, it's a really nice software tool or a tool that you can use for virtual meetings or gatherings where you're talking to people, you're writing notes, you're putting it on like a whiteboard, a digital whiteboard basically. So it's a fun little thing that we use. And we talk about how we interact with different groups in our stakeholders section. One thing I do want to point out, pardon me scrolling through, but to me, I love this, and it's something, I'll get to the website here in a second. One thing that we wanted to do this go around is try to focus on our graphics and being able to be a little more inclusive in our graphic usage. In the past, we've kind of just selected a color and gone forward with it, but we've always heard that there are some individuals out there that can't see the colorings that we use as part of our graphics. So what we had the consultant do this time is develop us a graphic for, non-color deficient individuals. And then we decided to see what does that look like for a common color deficiency, color blindness deficiency. And so as you can see here, it's hard to see on this screen. I apologize, this projector is not very good. But on the left, it's kind of like a blue teal color. And on the right, it's more of like a gray color. So what we wanted to do to present to people here is what does it look like for the majority of the people looking at this plan? And what does it look like for other people? And is it easy enough for people to see and follow along? Because we don't want to leave people behind if they're like, I can't see these colors, I don't understand what they mean. You know, a good example is when we put out maps that have different colored denotions on them. We want to make sure that whatever colors we use, it's still easy for people to interpret the information. So I point this out because you'll probably be seeing other mentions of this as we go through the plan. As we produce maps, we may show you a version for that's similar to the left one that uses our traditional color scheme, and then what does it look like for anyone who has color blindness deficiency. I apologize if I'm not saying the right thing. It's a new thing for me to understand the verbiage. I don't want to offend anyone. So be on the lookout for that. I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. It's a small little tweak that we can do to make the whole plan overall better. Okay, I did mention the website. We do have a website available. We do have the information in the plan. So here are a couple screenshots in the public involvement plan. However, if you are a municipal employee or using the municipal internet, you are unable to reach the website at this point. IT has put in a pretty strict filter system, so any newly created domain, so new websites, are not allowed to be accessed on our interwebs. We have a request into IT to allow this to be accessed through when you connect, for employees and when you connect to the internet here. It is accessible via your phone, your personal phone if you want to. The website is www.amats.gov. amats2050.com. And if you go out and say, well, I want to see AMATS 2050 and just type it in Google, the Google search algorithm is not in place yet. We want to make sure everything is okay before we enable it, but it should be enabled soon. So I'm hoping that they'll allow the website through in the next 3 to 4 weeks is typically how long it takes them to activate it. But I highly recommend when it happens, I'll probably send out a notice or anything. I highly recommend people go and take a look at it. Please let us know if you find any inconsistencies or issues that we need to change with the website. So I'm not able to actually walk through the website with you guys right now, so I apologize for that. Maybe at a later date when it does become available, I can do a quick presentation and show you the different tabs and what we're doing with it and how we're trying to get more information out to people in a little easier to read format, because in the past it's been very difficult for people to follow along. Okay. So we do have that, stakeholder meetings. And stakeholders. So we do go through and talk about stakeholders, how we're going to be talking to them, what we're going to be doing with stakeholder input. I want to kind of address this because it's been an issue over the years. Stakeholder input's kind of everyone's input. So committees, public, assembly, community councils, whoever it is, are all stakeholders. They're all equally important, and we want to make sure we get everyone's information in. In the past, what we've done is we've taken things to the committee, put them out, gotten comments from people, taken them back through the committee. It's been a real kind of slowdown of the overall process. In an effort to help streamline the process, what we want to do this go around is, if we're going to put something out for public comment, we get it done internally first by staff, get it ready to bring it to the committees, bring it to the TAC and get recommendations on it, make any changes we need to, bring it forward to the policy committee for approval to release with any changes that they have, put it out for the public to see for however long our public comment period is. When that closes, we take those comments, we respond to them in a public response summary, and then we move forward. Our goal is to help kind of cut out some of these in-between pieces that add a lot of time. Now, I don't want you to fret. You will still be able to see everything and make changes. Please note that although we're trying to streamline this a little, there's still opportunity for committee members to look at things, to make comments on things, for the public to look at things and make comments on things, and for changes to happen at any point during the development of this plan. In the past, we have run into some problems where people have made comments and they haven't seen any changes, or we haven't been able to make changes because we ran out of time. Our goal is to help eliminate that this goes through, so we could really use your guys' help with that as we go along the process. Okay, and then the last thing is the schedule. I know everyone loves the schedule. This was a little bit of a heartburn for me, but I got over it. We did try to put some more specificity in the schedule this go around than maybe past versions of the MTP. We have heard from the public that it's hard to follow along the process. It's hard to know when they need to be involved and how long it's going to be. So what we've done here is we've put out a schedule of the important public involvement milestones. Please note this is not everything that needs to be done in the MTP. There's a lot of stuff in the background that we as staff do to get ready for these public involvement pieces. So you'll see here, the first thing is the website completion and launch. That's a pretty easy one because that's entire project length. One of the next big things that's coming up in November is advertising for the public workshop #1. So that's just right around the corner. And so when we say advertise for the public workshop, that's not the actual public workshop. That's just sending out the notice. And we say it's going to last about 21 days. It's how long we're going to give notice for people. So about 3 weeks that will let people know that the workshop is coming up. So if you look at the next piece, public comment period for goals, objectives, performance measures, and targets. We say in November about the same time, getting ready for the public workshop is a 15-day public comment period. So when I talked about helping to streamline the process at the very front, here's an example of that. Normally, we would put these out for a 30-day public comment period. We're recommending a 15-day public comment period. One of the reasons is we're not actually doing a wholesale rewrite of all the goals and objectives. We're doing a refinement of the goals and objectives based on comments that were carried forward, comments we weren't able to address in the 2040, as well as making sure to do a thorough updated review of the 2040 land use plan, the climate action plan, Anchorage 2020, the FAST Act, and any of the new plans that have been adopted since the update of the last MTP. So all in all, it's not a whole lot of changes. You are going to see some changes to the goals and objectives. We're still working on that internally, but it's not a start over from scratch. So we felt that the comment period time could be a little condensed to help us move forward. Again, even though it's 15 days, at any point, if somebody wants to make a comment on the goals and objectives, we take those comments, we do the best we can with them, and if it's something we can incorporate in that makes sense, that improves the plan, we're going to make recommendations to incorporate that in and let everyone know about that. So even if we're at the end where we're doing the whole public comment review of the entire document, and somebody would like a goal or objective change, that's something we will consider. And then we want to make sure there's enough time to work that into the process. So I hope everyone looked at it, but I strongly recommend we pay attention to this schedule because this is what we're going to be following pretty diligently through the development of the plan. And it does outline the public comment periods for these specific items. Yes.
So the TAC meeting or the policy committee meeting, I know this didn't show up on this schedule, and I'm assuming that it probably needs to come like right before, and like in this case, advertising, and you'd mentioned that you do the TAC and the policy first, and then these outreach to the public happen. So can we just assume that right prior to each of the different points where it's public outreach, that's when you're going to be targeting our meeting?
So any item on here, except for the ads of advertising and workshops, because we just do that. We don't normally come for approval for that because that's just part of our process. Any actual item we're going to put out for comment, we will be coming to the TAC or policy committee for approval to put it out for public comment. So a good example is the goals and objectives in November. You will expect them on the TAC agenda for November, as well as the policy committee in November for release for public comment. So yeah, so I would, as you look at the schedule, if you see it at that month or period, you will notice that as we get further in the schedule, we become a little less specific. So we go into actual month periods to just quarter periods or seasonal periods, because we want to allow some flexibility as we get along in the development of the plan. Because it is a little further out. We're not 100% solid on exact dates for things. So we're going to give ourselves a time range so people can be like, okay, fall, winter of 2022, we can be looking out for the public workshop too. As we get closer, we will be announcing the more specific dates. We'll be bringing it to the committees. You will see more information about. Our goal here is just to try to be nice and transparent and try to help members of the public and the committees follow along with the major key decision points or major key areas we really need their involvement in this plan. Because, the last 2040, we had a very robust development in the beginning and we had so much involvement and people got really burnt out. We want to make sure people target their involvement strategically to make sure that they're involved the entire way and keep interest the entire time. Okay, and then at the very end, you'll see kind of this funny little graphic. It works. You'll see the COGS are kind of the public workshops or big meetings that we're going to have for the public. So those are kind of highlighted for people to go, okay, we need to pay attention to that. That's where we're doing a lot of work, or the nuts and bolts of the developmental plan. As we go along, this probably will be updated to reflect where we're at. I'm still trying to decide how I want to do it. The last MTP update, the project manager came to every meeting with a gigantic schedule that said, here's where we are, here's where we've been, that kind of stuff. I want something similar so people kind of know where we're at with the process. So when we bring something for release to the public, they're not like, how does this feed into the plan? What does this matter at this point, or how is it going to help? We want to try and get that information out as we're releasing these items. So expect to see this more often, maybe in a different format, I'm not sure yet. So that is all I had for the public involvement plan. There's a lot in there. I just wanted to go through it really quickly, and I'm here for questions or comments.
Any questions from the committee? I enjoyed looking through it. I thought it looked great. I'm excited that with COVID happening and that you've owned that by doing so much online, which really I think our community is ready for. And so that'll be a fantastic way to go. And the mural is really cool too. So I appreciate the consultant team and Aaron, all your work on setting this all up. Thank you. Anyone online? Should we have the public comment now or have them all ask on kind of all of the MTP after you go through the other part? Do you have a preference?
It's up to you. I can answer questions at any point.
Maybe let's focus on the public involvement one and then we can look at the guiding principles after. Did you say that someone might have?
Yeah, I believe Nancy Pease had her hand raised. Nancy, you can unmute and go ahead. If you are speaking, we don't hear you.
Maybe we can come back to her.
Yeah, well, Nancy, you're muted. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll come back to you.
Okay, also the public was invited to comment. Do we have any other comments on this specific piece?
We have Matt Stitchick who would like to comment now, committee member.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron, I would just recommend that at least one of the stakeholder meetings be directed towards the UAA APU campus. I don't know the best way to reach that crowd, but you mentioned a goal of getting interest from young people since this will affect them and by the time it's implemented. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't specifically call it every stakeholder we were going to attend because in the past, we've had people comment that we missed somebody, even though we were going to catch them, they just weren't on our list. So we have an internal list that we have developed of all of our stakeholders. Interestingly enough, I just found out today that the school district has done something interesting in the past. I want to see if we can do this part of the MTP is giving government classes extra credit if they attend public meetings. I think it would be fascinating to get some of the younger generation involved early and get them to understand the importance of paying attention, even if it's just kind of every once in a while knowing what's going on. But you know, when bonds come on for voting, they kind of understand a little more why they're there, what they do, because it can be kind of confusing, or why a project is being done this way instead of that way. I would like to reach out to the school district and see if that's an option. It may not be this go round, but maybe for future or other AMATS plans. So thank you for your comment.
We can try Nancy one more time. Nancy, would you like to unmute and speak?
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Great, thank you. I was a little concerned. I guess if I heard correctly, there would be only a 2-week review period for goals and objectives for the 2050 MTP because once again, the AMATS staff's proposing just to kind of fast forward the 2040 goals and objectives. And there was considerable public comment last time around that wasn't incorporated with the promise that this time around, the committee, the AMATS, process would really double down and take into consideration certain public comments, particularly the climate action plan and Vision Zero and some of the other concerns. So is that correct that there's a plan for just a 2-week comment period on the goals and objectives? And if so, I'm going to suggest that's not nearly enough.
Yes, that is correct.
Well, community councils are one forum for people to weigh in collectively. Other organizations, bike groups, pedestrian groups would also benefit from weighing in collectively. Many of these meet on a 30-day calendar once a month. So something like a 60-day comment period would be very helpful, or a 45-day comment period. 2 weeks basically says, we don't really care about you getting together to work on these. Goals and objectives take time and discussion. So 2 weeks is kind of an insult, I would say. Sorry to be blunt on that, but if this is going to be just fast forward 2040, then no wonder people drop out of the process.
Okay.
Matt, you have your hand up again. Would you like to speak?
No, if so, that's an error. I'll try to figure out why that is.
We also have a member of the public.
Hi, I'm Josie Wilson, and I had a question for you, Erin. When you're doing your advertising on upcoming public events and things like that, do you include emails like e-blasts? As I see the constant contact email list, but I didn't see in the schedule, it didn't clearly say whether e-blasts and emails to the people is part of that advertising strategy. Just so as me as a member of the public, if I want to participate in that, I will get an email in my inbox that says, hey, in 3 weeks that's coming. Is that kind of part of the plan?
Yeah, so one of our strategies this go around is really helping to utilize all the tools available to us. So for example, we recently met with a public transportation department to start thinking about how to advertise on buses. Not necessarily to advertise the upcoming meetings, because how the advertising works and the printing, and it's complicated. So we want a generic thing that says, sign up, get information. So at the beginning, based on Christine Schutte helping us with this, is really do a concerted effort to get people to sign up to our email list, either the AMATS list or the constant contact list that we're going to have for the MTP. Because that's where people are going to be able to find information and be able to provide their comments, whether it's a group or an individual, whatever it may be. We really want them to be more actively involved via our emailing list versus just trying to wait and see if it's in the newspaper, they hear it on the radio, or they see a sign some random place. Because we found that it takes a lot of effort to put it into the newspaper for maybe not the best amount of return on that. So, we're still going to have some mainstays, like looking maybe at Facebook or some other stuff and posting it out there. But we really want to focus on getting people to sign up and be involved electronically that way, where possible. We do understand that not everyone wants to sign up with their email. There is ways to contact us without having to be via email. We put stuff on our website. We can always reach out to people. Otherwise, I understand that there's a portion of the population that has limited access to internet or technology or other things like that. And that is a constant struggle that we're dealing with as the project team on how best to reach out to those populations. And I don't have a magic answer on that, but I think we're just going to take it as we go and make sure we can reach out the best we can and try and utilize other groups to get the information out there. While, they may not be able to access via our email, maybe a community council knows how to reach out to a specific population that has more limited access to internet.
And well, to Nancy's point on the phone, if we can't go to a 30-day comment period, but you are focused on that public advertisement, that we can really focus on like community councils and making sure they are having that conversation so that they're ready to comment when it happens and just like really target that advertising.
Yeah, it's really hard to work around the community council schedules for these plans, because I'll be honest, if they want to be involved, then they need to take a little bit of effort on their part to be involved more than just saying, we're doing every 30 days, you need to meet our schedule. Because we have a very tight schedule, very limited budget on this project, and a lot of things are relying on this project getting done on time.
Can we start now and put this schedule out? Because my community council, for example, is November 7th. Maybe we can get on that agenda to make that first.
The problem we run into is we need to make sure that anything we put out for people is run through the committees first. So at this point, we won't be able to actually release anything until we get the goals and objectives on the TAC agenda. And even then, until technically the policy committee approves it, we can't release anything for the public. So we're kind of limited in that regard. We can at least give people heads up. Once we have the public involvement plan approved, we can send information out to the FCC or to other groups and just let them know, this is here, start paying, really look at this schedule to know that these times are coming up. It was mentioned that there are comments that were carried forward or not addressed with the 2040. Those are being looked at. I don't have the goals and objectives available right now because we still are working on them, but we will talk about how we're addressing those as part of our review process when we bring it forward next month. If you guys have the ability to help get this information out to different groups and just let them know these things are coming up, we would appreciate any help we can be given.
We have Bart Rudolph has his hand up. Bart,
Okay,
would you like to unmute and speak?
Sure, yeah, I think Erin just kind of covered this too, but I was just going to respond to Nancy's comment because I share the same concern with the comments that were kind of passed over last time and how they're going to be addressed this time. And I am on the project team, and I just want to clarify that I think the expectation is that those comments that were made during the 2040 MTP will be addressed and looked at before staff puts out their recommendation for the goals and objectives, so that they are already included in whatever staff recommends, in the hopes that the people who commented during the 2040 MTP don't have to make the same comments this go around, and they'll see how they were actually addressed. So I just kind of want to clarify that I don't think those comments are just going to sit there. I think hopefully they're going to be in the staff's recommendation. And Aaron, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that is correct. I did mention earlier that we're going to be taking a look at the comments, because there weren't just comments on the goals and objectives. There were actually more comments on project specifics in the MTP than there was anything else. So of the 38 comments that are being carried forward, I don't really like saying carried forward because that kind of gives a connotation of just they were ignored. The comments that weren't addressed adequately enough in the 2040, because we ran out of time, are going to be looked at before we put anything out for the public for comment. Because the idea is people made those comments, we want to address them somehow, and we want to incorporate them where appropriate. Now, I want people to understand that just because you commented on something does not mean a change will necessarily happen to the document. That seems to be a misconception with different community councils in this town, that they commented, they expect a change to happen. Every change is looked at, every change is responded to where possible and incorporated where it fits into the plan, because some changes may not be good. For example, for the 2040, we had somebody recommend we put a monorail around Anchorage and put it through the neighborhood where those people live to get them out of the neighborhoods. I'm not really going to update the MTP based on that comment. We reviewed it, we responded, and we moved on. And that's what we're going to do for every comment.
Other,
Nancy has her hand raised.
okay, sure.
Nancy, if you'd like to unmute.
I'm sorry, I already commented once, my hand should have come down.
Okay, thank you.
And then Josie, go ahead.
I just had another quick question. Have you set about, Aaron, metrics for success? Not just like one big goal and not like this is how we will approach, but like we want to try to get 50,000 substantive comments, or we want 2,000 engagements with, you know, between community council leaders. Have you put any thought into what does success look like for the outcome?
No, but you raise a really good point. I think I think that got overlooked, I'll probably be honest, because we are about a year behind on the schedule, so we are trying to catch up. But that is a very good point, and that is something I would like to bring forward for the team, because it's not just, it's something that we can carry forward for the entire plan. Because we could look at, okay, we got X number of comments and X number of comments were added, you know, were addressed and added to the plan. Or X number of comments were not, you know, something like that. We can look at those kind of metrics for success. So I will bring it back to the consultants and see if there is something we can do. I don't know what it'll be, but maybe it's something I can work on my own and just have it available and maybe get some feedback from some people on there and see if anyone has any good recommendations on what would be a good way to measure success. So I may contact you.
So I have another kind of comment towards Nancy's question. The community council that I'm a part of does often have working groups when there's a fast deadline. And it does seem like we have enough things here that are fast turnaround deadlines. If we do get the word out to the community councils, we could potentially recommend that because of the fast turnaround for all of this, if they can, you know, be ready for when things come out to be able to address it in a quick manner. That might be one way to ensure that the community councils have the time. They won't be able to take a long time well, some might miss their community council's meeting that month, depending on how the 15 days turn out, but that could be one approach. And you also mentioned, Aaron, that even if some comments don't come into that time frame, you'll still be looking at comments over the duration of the project. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, our goal this go around is to really get them to a point where we can say, this is good enough, or this is where we think they're okay, move forward. Because one of the things I want people to remember is that the MTP development is kind of a growing process as we go along. We're trying to recognize that we need to be flexible in our development of this. So right now, we have our snapshot in time, but as we move forward and get more comments on the criteria, the financial, the projects, that kind of stuff, it could be that we're like, wait a minute, we missed this with the goal, or we missed this with the objective. We really need to add it in. And I want to allow us that time and flexibility. But if we spend 60 days on the goals and objectives this go around, that eats into our time later on when people are able to actually see the entire document and say, here are the goals and objectives, the criteria, the projects. I see how everything links up. And I see that there's a gap here and we need to address it. If we spend too much time at the beginning, we don't have that flexibility at the end, and we get a, sorry, we can't address your comments again. And I want to steer away from that. There can be some flexibility in the schedule if we think 15 days is too short, but I'm going to have to push back against a 60 or even 45 day. That is far too long for us, because that really eats into our ability to move on to the next step, which is criteria development.
Yeah, the trade-off of doing a longer time up front is that you have shorter time at the back.
Yep.
And I mean, honestly, I've seen way more feedback from people at the end of a project because you got, like you said, the bigger picture. So that makes a lot of sense. The other thing is that with the TAC meeting agenda now out, these documents could be findable, correct? So if somebody wanted to take a look at them before they're officially released, they can have a little bit of a feel. I mean, you're going to incorporate our comments, right, before they're publicly released?
Yeah, any comments that you guys make or changes that you're recommending here to the policy committee, everything has to go to the policy committee for approval. If they approve it with any changes, we make those changes before we release it to the public.
So, if somebody wants to get a glimpse of what it might be looking like a month in advance, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point. We say 30-day public comment period, but really you have to include the entire month that they're made available. Well, sorry, yeah, even more, a month before, because we post them for the TAC, so people can start looking at it then, getting their comments either at the committees or send their comments in while we're putting it through the committees. So I guess maybe that's part of our messaging, is that when we put it on the TAC agenda, I think Shayna mentioned this, and maybe when we post it to the TAC agenda, we can get notice out to them. These are coming for release. If you would like to start taking a look at them now to provide your comments early, please do so. And you can do it via this way or however we want to do it. And then say, here's the official time for other people, for more time.
And that would even allow them, if they wanted to come to this meeting and tell us in person, another way to be able to voice their concerns or their interests or their ideas.
Okay.
That sounds great. Okay, any other comments? Or should we move on to the goals or the guiding principles? Let's move on to the guiding principles then, Aaron.
Okie dokie. I know that took a while to do, but the public involvement plan is pretty important. So thank you for bearing with me as we were helping to answer those questions and kind of get that information out there. Okay, guiding principles. Oh boy. The guiding principles, try to explain them in a way that makes the most sense. The name kind of says what they do. They're ideas or principles that we use to help guide the 2050 MTP. Well, what does that mean? Well, we have some federal requirements that we have to follow. So we outline what those are in this document. We have some requirements that came from the policy committee approved resolution. That resolution kind of set our constraints for what we have, how we're going to be updating things. Do we do a full-blown update of the goals and objectives, or do we just update them based on approved plans that have been approved since the 2040, and the comments that were carried forward? So when I say that, we're not doing a wholesale rewrite, a lot of that is based on that resolution that the policy committee already passed. So what we did for this guiding principles is we took that resolution and we used it and expanded upon it and put all that key information in here, as well as all the federal requirements that we had to do, that we have to follow along. So, we always refer back to that resolution when possible. This is pretty easy. As we talk about here, we just talk about our regulations that we have to follow. Then we talk about our structures, the different committees that we have as part of AMATS, and how we interact with them, what their kind of role in the plan is. And then we talk about the assembly and its kind of role in the plan for us. And then we go into principles based on local plans. So I wanted to highlight this because we've heard some comments about, well, this plan was updated and you didn't incorporate it in the 2040. Yes, because we're probably at the end of the 2040 and it's hard for us to completely wholesale rewrite everything to fit a plan that just got approved. So as you can see here, we do have 3 plans that have been approved since the last update, or right as the last update was happening. So we have the Spinard Corridor Plan, the Transit on the Move Transit Plan, and then we have the non-motorized plan. So those are 3 key new plans that we will be looking at for goals refinement, criteria development, project selection, and policy development and selection. So you'll probably be hearing more about those. You'll find information as we go forward. Hey, we got this from that one particular plan and want to incorporate it in here. Additionally, we're going to take a look at the land use plan, the comp plan, the 2020 comp plan, and then the climate action plan. The climate action plan was a little more difficult for us to look at during the 2040 because of how relatively new it was, but we have a lot more of a firm footing and people are doing a lot more efforts. Like I'm working with Shana Kilcoyne to talk about how we want to do greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, objective, and possible target. So you'll probably be seeing something in the goals and objectives coming forward about greenhouse gas emissions or climate change, something like that. One thing that's not in here that we will make sure we take into account is the new federal authorization that's being looked at right now. For those who don't know, there's a new authorization bill being looked at for Congress that'll add X trillions of dollars available. It has a lot of new requirements in it. And it also expands what federal funding can be spent on. So for years, we've heard from people about how we need to spend money on electric infrastructure for cars. Well, the new authorization bill does have the option to allow federal funds to be spent on. So that is a new thing. However, that has not been approved yet. So we are patiently waiting for it to be approved. Once approved, which we expect to be kind of any moment now, that stuff will be incorporated in where possible. So, we may have a small shift as we go forward where that gets approved and we have to make some slight adjustments. We're trying to account for it as we move forward with the goals and objectives, but we weren't really sure how to put it in the guiding principles because it's not approved yet and is still subject to pretty significant change. So then we talk about public participation, equity. Equity is an interesting thing for us because we've always accounted for equity in our transportation process, our planning process, but I think it's been hidden amongst other things that we do. Like our goals and objectives have equity in it, but it's hidden amongst the environmental side of things. And I think one of my goals for this MTP is to be more upfront about equity and trying to incorporate equity throughout the entire process, not at just key strategic location or points. It's hard. I want to be upfront and honest. Equity is very hard to deal with. Every MPO throughout the country has a very difficult time dealing with this. And if you look at federal regulations, they're pretty lackluster on how to do it. So I'd like to invite anyone to provide comments about how to incorporate equity into our process. One thing we want to do is involve the Muni's equity officer, whoever that might be, to be part of our process. Where they can, and to help give us guidance on, we're doing really good here, or we should really beat up here, something like that. Because it is kind of a learning process for a lot of us all the time. And then we have data sources. So I do want to point out for data, before we get to the vision statement, we've heard a lot of comments about data in the 2040 MTP. So here we kind of give a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at for data. Our plan is to use the 2019 socioeconomic assumptions because that was right before COVID hit. The 2020 data is all over the place. The 2021 data is a mess. And so we want to use something that's a little more stable. Because if you use the 2020, it's everyone was working from home. We don't need any projects. Well, we're kind of getting back to normal around here with the amount of driving that's going on. So we want to be very careful in our incorporation of COVID data to our plan. Please understand that when it says use the newest available data, it's a snapshot in time. When it's 2023 and we're about to approve the plan, we're not going to be going back and using 2022 data because we've already moved beyond that process. Certain things that are updated like transit routes We do work closely with transit to get that information into the model where possible, but there are some things we just have to take our snapshot and move forward. And then we'll update it for the next MTP. I know that's a big topic, so we can talk more about that if people have concerns. And then the vision statement. Ooh. So this vision statement was a very fun exercise for me to do with the consultants because I am very in the weeds in this process. When I look at transportation planning and MTP development, I just see acronyms, I see financial stuff, I see this, I have a hard time being able to step back and look at it from a perspective from somebody who's not involved in the process and in day-to-day. Committee members, you are somewhat involved, but not kind of as deep as some of us on the project team. Members of the public have even a harder time sometimes. So when we wanted to craft our vision statement, we thought about, it's more of what do we want the transportation system to look like in the future? When we think about by 2050, what do we want to see our transportation system to be? So we wanted to go with things that were less technical, less jargony, and put it in there. So we changed some things to adaptable and efficient multimodal transportation system. That covers things like resiliency, congestion reduction, things like that. Because when people see congestion reduction, they're like, well, congestion reduction can cover a lot of things. Non-motorized congestion, vehicular congestion, freight congestion, etc. So we want to take it out and what's more of a common term that people use. And I do understand multimodal transportation is maybe not as common, but it is what we talk about in our process. So we want to keep some aspects of it. So let me just read it for you. It's Anchorage and Chugach Eagle River are vibrant winter communities with an adaptable and efficient multimodal transportation network that is equitable, safe, accessible, and reliable, which supports a sustainable economy, enhances and protects the natural and built environment, and fosters healthy, connected neighborhoods. So I do want to point out a couple things in this vision statement that were carried forward from the 2040. Healthy. We have not really had healthy involved in our MTP in the past. It hasn't been called up front. But we did hear some comments from people about how we need to be thinking about how we can help the health, the physical health, mental health of our communities when we're doing our plan development. So it is something we want to take a look at. The AMATS non-motorized plan did a very nice equity analysis for health, areas that are having problems with heart, lungs, other things like that. And so we want to incorporate that into our process here. We'll see how it goes, but it's a start. And then we do talk about protecting the natural built environment. The reason for that is because of things like climate change. We want it to be not just a political gotcha, that when people say climate change and they come unraveled. We want it to be more broad, so everyone's like, okay, we kind of understand what you're talking about here, that it's encompassing everything. I think that's it for that stuff.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments from the committee? Anyone online? I do have a few questions myself as I was looking through this. The first has to do with the travel demand model.
Yes.
As you comment about 2019, I know that the prior model, the 2040, has a 2013 base year. Is the model being updated to have a 2019 base year? Is that correct?
Yes, it will be updated to 2019 base year. The Seward to Glen Highway PEL model effort is helping with that. And we also have an RFP out right now to get a consultant on board to update the MTP model. That is a key cornerstone of what we have to do. And I'm going to get into a little detail just so everyone understands. The reason that our model is so kind of finicky with it, where we always seem to have to constantly be updating it, is EPA regulations require for areas of non-attainment or have to follow that. We're a limited maintenance, so we're kind of in that weird border. Your model, the base data you use in your model has a 10-year period before it expires. So the 2040 model used 2013 data. It'll expire in 2023 while we're still in the middle of our MTP update. So we have to update this and it'll expire in 2029. So hopefully the next MTP update, we want to have to update our model and we'll have we'll still have to update it for land use and TAZ allocations and that kind of stuff, but some of the base stuff will be able to stay as it is. So
I know that consultants in using that model for other projects as they're refining the MTP projects and implementing, often have to do a lot of massaging of quarter-specific things. And there were some tools like select zone, I'm gonna get technical here, right? Select zone runs and select link runs. Is the new model gonna be able to provide some of those additional resources to really understand those aspects?
I hope so. We'll see. I'm not the model update project manager, so I cannot speak for him. But if you have specific questions, please email them to us and we can get back to you. My goal, I hope to also do a thing called vision eval, which is like a policy model. Because one of the problems with our travel demand model is it's harder to incorporate things like better policy level changes like parking, pricing, VMT tax, other things like that. The vision eval would be a model that we can use to be like, okay, we want to incorporate this policy change at the municipal level to where we can do a VMT tax. What does that do to the transportation network? And it gives us a more holistic picture of everything without having to go in and fine tune each intersection. And it's basically like two models that work in sync with each other and do two kind of separate things, but they're similar and allow us to look at kind of the whole picture. Whereas now, if we put forward a policy, we're like, we have to do so much work on the model to be able to incorporate, well, how does that affect the model, that it becomes really difficult and time consuming and costly, that we often don't get to do that. So we put these policies in, but we're not really sure how they affect the overall transportation network. So there'll be multiple updates. We'll see. I don't know how much the model can do above and beyond what it has done in the past.
Okay, I'll be interested in talking with you afterwards. I'll find a little bit more about the model.
Okay.
One question I do have on it is, is everything on track that it will be ready for when we need it for this project? Maybe that's a loaded
How
question.
honest do you want me to be? So we have had some pretty significant problems with purchasing here at the municipality of Anchorage. There's been significant slowdowns for anything. And so the MTP model update is very behind. And I know that staff has been trying to do their best and purchasing staff has been trying to help, but there's just been some hiccups. We are moving forward as though everything is on track and we'll adjust the schedule as needed. We will keep everyone updated as we can, but I know that whoever we get on board for the model update will probably be an awesome consulting team. I don't know who it is, I'm just saying any of them are gonna be good. And they'll be able to easily work with us. Thankfully, the awesome Sewer to Glen Highway project is doing some of the base update, and so that will keep us moving forward. We'll be able to utilize some of their information. Now, we can't use everything because theirs is more localized to the plan itself, the plan area. So we're gonna have to do, AMATS wide, making sure all the TAZ allocations are appropriate for what we need and stuff like that, and the traffic coming in and out of the entire area versus the project location. There's some refinement that needs to be done that's specific to the MTP. So we're trying to keep going.
I'm glad to hear that you've got all these things on your mind and thinking about it. There's also a downtown comprehensive plan update. That might be something to see how to incorporate into your plans. And let's see. Yeah, I guess those are the questions that I have. So thank you, Aaron. Other comments from the committee or the public? No comments online? Okay. Looks like the audience, none. Okay, so what is the will of the committee with regards to the request to forward this on to the policy committee?
I'll move to recommend to the policy committee approval of the 2050 MTP vision statement and guiding principles and the public involvement plan.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Van Hove or by Mr. Capone and seconded by Mr. Van Hove to forward this on to the policy committee. Any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, 2019-2022 TIP, administrative modification number 5. Is that one that you'll be talking about?
That's me.
Okay, go for
You
it.
have a memo 5B and a legal size spreadsheet there. These are changes to just table 10, which as you may remember, that is outside the AMATS allocation. But since they're federal surface transportation improvement funds in the municipality inside the AMATS area, they have to be reflected, those changes have to be reflected in the tip. So these are changes to some funding from 5307 funding for the railroad. I believe a similar kind of set of funding from the public transportation department. So the memo is pretty clear, I believe, self-explanatory. They're just some minor changes. We just need to recommend these to the policy committee for approval because they're an administrative modification. They don't require a public comment period as per federal law. So I can attempt to answer some of those, but I know Mr. Lindemood and Ms. Acton are both online if you have specific questions about the changes in those funding streams. But otherwise, we're asking you folks to recommend to the policy committee the approval of admin mod number 5.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Craig. Any questions or comments from the committee? The public was also invited to comment. Is there anyone online there?
No one has their hand up.
Okay, any questions from the public? Comments? Okay, we're looking good then. What is the will of the committee?
This is Brian Lindemood. I'll move to approve.
Second, Jamie Acton.
Okay, they've been approved by Mr. Lindemood and seconded by Ms. Acton. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved. And let's move on then to 5C. The 2022-2023 UPWP. Probably also you, Craig?
That's me again.
Okay.
So this is our work program for the next 2 years. These are what, this is what staff will be doing for the next 2 years with our planning funds. So just a reminder again, this is not TIP funds, this is not the capital projects, et cetera. This is what my staff and Mr. Starzek and the planning funds that are utilized by the public transportation department, what are they going to do in the next 2 years? We do a 2-year program with an annual budget. The budget is not required to go out for public comment, but the work program itself is. We just received the allocation relatively recently, so we're still working out the exact where we're putting those dollar figures, exactly how much. But the work program itself that you have before you, the narrative, is what we're asking to go out. You recommend to the policy committee for a 30-day public review. I just want to make a few points here about some things. Most of the tasks are very similar with the last one. There are a few new ones. There is on page 14, task 140, the federal planning certification. Just letting folks know that in 2023 we will have our federal certification again. So those folks, the FHWA and FTA, will come up and certify our process and make sure that we're following in line with the federal planning regs on what we're supposed to be doing. On page 18, we have the task in there of complete streets and street typology. This is a task that's been there in the past. We were originally planning on doing the street typology plan as an internal document, just staff working on that, but with the other work efforts that we have, we're just not going to be able to do that all internal. So we're going to budget some funds in there for a contract for that, to hire a consultant to work on that. Joni has done a lot of work already working with the current planning and long range planning group in the planning department to move that forward. So there is some stuff that has been done, but we're going to finish that off with a consultant contract. Next page, page 20, we have a new project, the AMATS safety plan. This was a project that was added as part of amendment number 2. So that is one of the projects that she's going to plan. She'll be managing, and so she's working on the RFP right now to get that out here, hopefully relatively soon, to bring a consultant on board. The dollar figure that was in the tip was $250,000. So take off some ICAP and some overhead, et cetera. So, just a little bit less than that to get a safety plan that will be pretty comprehensive for the AMATS area. I'm sure you're very well aware on page 22, we have task 292, the transportation demand management study. So that's a project that was in the tip. The RFP just closed recently, so we will be reviewing those proposals within the next couple weeks and get that thing moving. That's a new task in here. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is at the tail end there, you have the 600 element, which is the transit element. And this is something that's been in our work program for as long as I've been here. These are the planning funds that, the 5303 planning funds for transit planning. And these are funds that have been controlled, et cetera, by the Public Transportation Department. They are, the state of Alaska is asking that, as opposed to the past practice of those funds going to transit, that they want them to all come together into AMATS. And so AMATS will be responsible for the grant accounting of that, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's, the tasks have been in here, the element has been in here for a long time, which is nice that we don't have to all of a sudden come in and add all those tasks in there and figure that part out. But it'll just be coming to AMATS as one consolidated planning grant, and then we will send the money over to transit for them to do the usual transit planning that they do. So other than that, I don't think I have anything to add. Happy to answer questions on this, but again, we are asking for you, the TAC, to recommend to the policy committee to release the narrative here for 30-day public review. That would bring it back to the TAC and policy committee in the December timeframe, and you'll have the budget at the same time.
Sounds good. Thank you, Craig. Any questions or comments from the committee? Anyone online? No. Okay, the public was also invited to comment. Have we received any from them?
We haven't, and nobody has their hand up.
Did anybody in the audience have questions or comments? Okay, so staff's requesting that we forward this to the policy committee to open 30-day public comment period release. What is the will of the committee?
I'll move to forward the draft 22-23 Unified Planning work program to policy committee for 30-day public review.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Van Ho, seconded by Ms. Kilcoyne to forward this onto the planning committee for release of 30-day public comment period. Okay, thank you. Oh, are there any objections? Okay, no objections. Hearing none, the motion is approved. Are there any other action items, Craig?
No, sir.
Okay, that gets us to the next item on our agenda, the project and plan updates.
What's that?
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Oh, just mentioning the fact that the AMATS third quarter newsletter is out. You can find it on our webpage. I believe an email blast went out with that. It's something that we decided to do, obviously, 3 quarters ago. Trying to think about doing it for a long time, and Christine is doing a spectacular job of creating that document. So I think it's a really good way of keeping people up to date on what we're doing. So go check it out.
Yeah, I noticed that you had a lot of information about other projects and things that are going on around the city. So
yeah,
it's great summary. So if someone wants to get a quick picture of the region, transportation, that's a great place to go. Okay, moving on to general information. I see we've got 2 here. Item A, Ocean Dock Road Reconnaissance Study, County Engineers. And I see that Jamie's in the audience, standing up, so take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Galen Jones. I'm with Alaska Department of Transportation. I'm here today with a couple of Kitty Engineers people, Jeannie Bodie and Jesse Miranda. We're here to talk about the Ocean Dock Road Reconnaissance Study. And I just want to mention Kitty Engineers has well suited to perform this study. They have experience with a previous study on Ocean Dock Road at the C Street ramps intersection there. That also gave them a really good opportunity to work with a lot of the stakeholders that we'll be working with again on this study. So the goal of today's brief presentation is pretty simple. We're just going to introduce the study to you and the team and basically the timeline and our goals for the study. Thanks for your time today and look forward to working with all of you. And I'll turn it over now to Jean.
Thank you, Galen. So wanted to introduce you to the project team that's working on this. So Galen Jones is the DOT project manager. I'm Jeannie Bowie, I'm the consultant project manager. Jessie is the project engineer. She's done a lot of diagnostic team studies with road and rail. So she's really familiar with that connection and is there to provide her expertise in that. Joanne Mitchell is doing public involvement for us. She was on that previous project that Galen talked about, is really familiar with the stakeholders and excellent at reaching out to them. We also have HDR on the team. Don McCammon and Rick Degman are both railroad experts and will be working with us on that project. And then True North Sustainable Development Solutions is helping us out with some of the environmental background work. So here's the study area. It's the road into the port, starting with Ship Creek and then Ocean Dock Road, all the way kind of past the gate of the port, all the way up to Roger Graves Road. The intersection marked X was the previous reconnaissance study that we did. We looked at that intersection and the 4 ramps up and down from C Street. And this reconnaissance study will expand on that and look at other opportunities kind of that we couldn't look at with that limited scope before. Hopefully this will just be able to build off of that without doing very much change to our recommendations at that intersection, but we may have to make some adjustments. So here's kind of the issues that we're planning to look at for the reconnaissance study. One of the main things that we couldn't look at with just that small intersection scope was all of the railroad road crossings that occur in this area. It's kind of been, roads and rail have been built to convenience at the time and not really with a plan in mind. So we're going to look at exactly how people are using it, what their plans are for using all of these different rail and road sections, and see if we can reduce. I think the important thing will be the number of times the trains and the cars hold each other up is really what we'll focus on. There's also some hydrology issues out there. We talked about them a lot in the intersection study, and we'll, be looking at the whole area for that. And then this location also, it's industrial, but there's a lot of pedestrian and bicycle use here because of Ship Creek, because bikes prefer to use this route to get to Government Hill neighborhood. So we'll also be looking at that interaction and can we make any improvements with that. Here's kind of a general list of our project stakeholders. Obviously, the Port of Alaska and Alaska Railroad are big stakeholders and are working with us on this. We plan to have a field visit last week of October that will include kind of everybody on the, on the left-hand column. I'm not so good with my right and left. The left-hand column, plus some of the Alaska Trucking Association, and we're going to do some one-on-one interviews with the port tenants and operators at that time. Then we'll get to that whole list of stakeholders as we get to our conceptual study and make sure we've captured everybody's comments and concerns. So the next 2 slides are our general schedule. like I said, we're kind of starting out with going out to these key stakeholders and getting information from them, and the field reviews. We went to the Freight Advisory Committee in August, and then we're here at the TAC and going to the Policy Committee this month in October. And we'll be doing some data collection efforts as well. All of that we'll put together into a conceptual study that will identify the problems and a wide range of ideas for feasible alternatives. Then we'll take that conceptual study to the advisory council, which is all of those stakeholders. We'll all meet together and talk through it, make sure we've got the issues identified correctly, and look at the feasible alternatives that we've thought of and kind of narrow that down into a set of alternatives we can really look at for the draft reconnaissance study. We're planning to have that study ready in June, and then we'll go kind of back to all of the stakeholders. We'll have a community open house and go to the community council, get comments on that draft study, put them together, and hopefully the final reconnaissance study will be done in September. So that's the project. There's some contact information. Definitely Galen and Joanna and I would be happy to take any comments or feedback that anybody has. And if there are any questions now, I can answer those too.
Okay, any questions? Anybody online? Okay, that was super helpful. I know that our staff is looking forward to the field visit and to be able to have everyone there and be able to get an in-depth look at it. Hopefully the weather will cooperate.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item 7B, the Seward to Glen Mobility Project, HDR. Do you have the floor?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taylor Horn. I'm with HDR. I also am here with Josie Wilson. I'm the deputy project manager for the consultant team, and Josie and I we're here today to give you a brief overview of the Seward Glen Mobility Planning and Environmental Linkage Study. I'm working with DOT and also with AMATS on this project. So the corridor, everyone in this room and online knows this corridor, and it has been studied and has been viewed as the main way people get through town and about town. So this is just a history of all the different efforts that have been involved. And if you look all the way down at the bottom, MTP item number 129 is this PEL study we're talking about right now. So this is the Seward Highway / Glen Highway Connection Planning and Environmental Linkages Study, 20th Avenue, Chester Creek, Airport Heights Road. And the main difference between this and I'll harken back to the highway to highway effort in 2009 is this is a much more focused study area and a different process than the EIS that was conducted for part of the EIS that was conducted that was stopped for the highway to highway effort. So on the screen right now is the study area. As you'll see, it starts about, we'll come in from Eagle River here on the Glen, and it is one intersection out from the Airport Heights intersection, and then it goes down to about Chester Creek, and then continues over to about 8th Street, C Street actually, and then encompasses part of the port, actually all of the port. And so the study description is to look at ways to improve the transportation mobility, safety, access, and connectivity between the Seward Highway and the Glen highways. The reason we've expanded that study area is when we're doing some of the traffic analyses, we want to make sure we're capturing the movements that might be cutting through, to make sure we're really getting a more myopic view of what's going on and where people are going through the area. The project also is going to look at ways to improve access to and from the Port of Alaska to the highway network. So I'm going to give an elevator pitch on what a PEL study is. This isn't the first one that's been conducted in town. Basically, just south of this project was the Midtown Congestion Relief Project that looked at the kind of Benson and part of the highway there. This is the next logical progression north of that, connecting the two highways. So what is a PEL study? Well, you're doing planning activities, but you're doing them in a way that they can be used during a specific project's NEPA or environmental process. And the reason that you do this is to hopefully not have to reproduce the efforts that often would happen if you're doing a planning study and not meeting the environmental regulatory requirements. What would happen is you program a project in a STIP or a TIP and then have to redo work when you're actually delivering a project. The idea, this mainly came out of the Federal Highway Administration. It's been adopted into US code and into Federal Highways, CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, is to do some of the same activities, like creating a purpose and need statement, like creating a range of alternatives, like filtering or screening some of those alternatives down to a recommended set of alternatives, and being able to use those in the NEPA process, and thus not having to redo the work. Happy to go into more detail if you want to. So what are we doing right now? Over the past summer, we've been doing some of the background work, getting some of the studies together, and now we're establishing 4 committees for the project. The Community Advisory Committee, and that's focusing on groups that, mainly the community councils in the area and other groups, and then we're going to have a technical advisory group that is encompassing some folks that are in this room, DOT and muni staff, a resource agency and tribal committee that are the potential permitting agencies that might be involved in any projects that come out, and the local tribal entities that might have comments on any projects that come out of this study. And then an executive committee for the project, which in essence is the AMATS policy committee plus the Department of Transportation Public Facilities Environmental Program Manager. The reason he's included is that he's a person that has to approve the final study. So where we are right now, we're going to look at the schedule here. We are at step 2 on that schedule, getting started on identifying problems. Like I said, over the past summer, we've been doing some of the background work, updating some of the traffic information. We're getting ready to kick off the committees where that the first red dot is there. And then we'll move through the project. The total timeline is we're looking to have the public review and comment on the final PEL study in spring of 2024. In between, the steps of this study are to first identify the transportation problems and then develop a purpose and need and evaluation criteria that will then be used to screen a reasonable range of alternatives that are developed and then refine those down into a final set there. I asked Josie to kind of speak up for a minute on the public outreach part of this.
You bet. So a couple things I just wanted to update everybody, and if anybody can't hear me online, just let me know, I can speak louder. The first thing is that all this information that we're going over and sharing with you is available on the website. We just launched the website, which is SewardGlenMobility.com. SewardGlenMobility.com. And you are welcome to get that information. You're welcome to contact us. You're welcome to sign up for any communications. All of that information will be available on the website. And as you can see on this schedule, community engagement, whether you call it public involvement, public outreach, but the opportunity to be involved in this effort is ongoing and really critical, as I think we've heard probably 15 different times today about how important public involvement is in this. And we have a public involvement plan that's been created, and we've got several tactics in addition to the committees that we're looking at. And of course, as part of our strategy is coming here routinely and coming to other AMATS groups to be able to apprise and inform and engage. And all of you are invited to talk with us at any time and anywhere. And I just want to have to say our project manager is in the room right now. She's amazing, Kelly. And she has also made herself very accessible and available. Anytime you have any questions on this process or you want to be engaged, want to know more information, please let us know. I'm so excited to see many faces in the room that are on these committees. So again, thank you for serving and engaging in that way. We've got lots and lots of tactics that we're not going to go into today, but if you have any questions on that, Aaron, if you have any questions on that or have any ideas, just, come see us. But I just want to personally say thank you for many of you for being involved in that. Thank you for the time today to present. Again, we tried to keep it to 5 minutes because we know you're all very busy. But we just wanted to let you know that we appreciate it, and there's plenty of opportunities for you and the public to be part of this process.
Thanks, Josie. So quickly, what's going on? Activities we're doing right now in this time frame. Over the past quarter, we've updated data. As Aaron said, this awesome project is also updating the TDM model and doing some of that data gathering and refinement that can be used for other projects too. We've been gathering data on the environmental setting. That committee kickoff meeting should be moved over to Q4 because that's happening next week for the first 3 committees. What you can expect over the next quarter are a newsletter. That's one of the main ways that we're going to engage the general public and get them involved and hopefully get them spun up for this project. So we're going to put out a newsletter that will tell people, hey, a public meeting is coming in Q1. And then, so some of the work is going to start coming in over the traffic work is going to come in over the winter. And then again, our first public meeting to look at the needs is going to happen in Q1. And that's it. Thank you for your time. And, do you have any questions?
Any questions online?
Yeah, I see Stephen Rebuffa. Would you like to go?
Yeah, thanks. And God, I hope you didn't say this and it just went right over my head. But when you're talking quarters, are those federal quarters, state quarters, or the local municipalities quarters?
Steve, I was talking calendar quarters there, so.
Okay. I
ends on
that because, yeah, we all juggle. I just wanted to know how to juggle this.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? Aaron?
There's actually a comment really quickly. I did talk about the 2050 website being blocked. And this website was blocked as well for municipal employees. We did get it unblocked. So just as a heads up for anyone who's working on future projects, that's going to be a common occurrence for any new websites, regardless of who puts it together. So if you want municipal employees to be able to look at the website, you'll need to contact somebody from the muni and get them to submit a help desk ticket with the website once it goes live. So we won't be able to get them to pre-do it. We need to wait until things are live, and then we can send them the website so they can look it over and make sure everything's safe.
Sounds good. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, any questions or comments from the public? Okay, thank you so much for coming. That was really helpful and insightful, and an important project. The next item on our agenda is committee comments. The floor is now open for comments from the committee. Can you go ahead, Mr. Bento?
Yes, I'd just like to make a quick comment about something Aaron talked earlier, which was the IIJA. State of Alaska, DOT, and others are already starting to put out some information as far as what little bit we know. The commissioners running around the state doing presentations on that same information, and basically in a nutshell, kind of like Aaron was saying earlier, is the anticipation is large increases of funding both in transportation and other programs. We're looking at so far about $1 trillion, and of that 500 million going to US DOT, which filters down to about a 40% increase what we're looking at in formula funds to DOT. So that would take, our annual program from roughly $550 million a year to over $770 million a year for the state of Alaska. And but with that, obviously, we are already engaging with DOT executives and legislators in making sure that we have our portion of the match money in line, because that's a significant increase, as well as the other portion of this IIJA bill that we're looking at is the potential for grants and grant opportunities, which is something that the state of Alaska currently doesn't do a very good job of going after. So, we're really trying to up our game in developing resources and figuring out how we can go after secure grants. And I guess to the folks at the port, I see there's a couple $1 billion for port grants that are available. I'm sure they're digging into those, but yeah, there's lots of opportunities for just not only state of Alaska DOT and other DOTs around the nation, but also for some, the communities, municipalities, others to be looking at grants and other funding opportunities.
Perfect, thank you. That's good news to hear.
We have Cindy Heil has a hand up. You can unmute Cindy.
Hello. I just received information today from the EPA. First, I better preface this. So far, Anchorage doesn't appear to have a problem with this, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen in the future if some of this comes through. And what's happening is the Clean Air Science Advisory Committee will be holding public meetings and peer review document meetings in November, December of this year. EPA is revisiting the PM 2.5 National Ambient Air Quality Standards, and they're looking at potentially dropping the annual standard from 12, maybe as low as 8, and the PM 2.5 24-hour standard from 35 to 30. Anchorage has had individual years where we've gone above 30 micrograms per cubic meter. The standard is based on a 3-year rolling average. However, if more and more people end up going towards wood heat, if the energy prices increase, that could potentially in the future might cause some concern. So I just want to let you know that EPA is relooking at the PM 2.5 National Ambient Air Quality. The Clean Air Science Advisory Committee is going to have meetings. It doesn't affect as much Anchorage as it does some other areas within the state, but I just thought I would bring that up.
Perfect, thank you. Any other committee comments? You're online? Okay. Well, I guess I just want to say thank you. I've enjoyed being here at the Muni. This has been, I think, 6 weeks here, and it's been great, and I've really appreciated all those that have reached out and also.
Mr. Chair, can we have public comments?
Okay,
can we
sure.
grab those too, just in case?
Perfect, that's right. Sorry, I was looking at my notes and I skipped that on that one. Okay, item 9, public comment. Any comments from the public? Okay, sounds good. I guess we thank you for participation. Our meeting is adjourned at 3:58.
Oops, sorry. Need to add that in there.
Yeah.
I'll get that in there.
That's all right.
Good job.